start and you're learning as much as you can. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh man, I got this down. Like, I'm good. Like, I know everything there is to know. And then when you get to that point, right, you start going backwards. Yeah, you start going backwards. It's a huge group for an internet. And I'm like, well, it's what I can build a website. You know, it's his GM kind of asked me, he's like, well, how much do you think you want to make? I don't know, 30, 40 grand. I'm thinking I'm giving myself a big raise. It's like, son, if that's all you want, like, we don't want you. I'm like, what?
Ooh.
Like, I'm in.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? This is L.A. Williams, Vice President with Dealer Synergy and the co-creator of the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast. And man, I am pumped up, fired up, super excited. Why, L.A.? Why you so daggum excited? I know you're excited all the time, but why are you excited today? Because I got my main man on the daggum podcast with me, and it's not Sean V. Bradley this time, right? This is a gentleman that some of y'all might know. I think he might have made an appearance on the podcast before. I'm not really sure. But if he did, man, it was nothing like this one, man, because we getting ready to dive deep with my main man, Mr. Jonathan Schrieber. What's going on, Jonathan?
Not much. Well, it's good to be here with you.
Same here, man. I'm telling you. And you know what's cool thing is that Jonathan, he came to work with Dealer Synergy as, and I don't even know his title. I'm the vice president. I don't know his title. I just know he's the man, okay? Like, he is the king when it comes to operations. He came in here really, Dealer Synergy's been in business for over 21 years now, right? And so, but he came in and kind of just helped to refine some processes and, kind of get things really rolling. We had the outsourced BDC. We were kind of doing the thing. We started over in Belize and now we got over in the Philippines, man. And I just feel like he made the job so much more fun. And because it was a little, he just added some organization to what it is that we do. So I got some questions for you, man. I want to kind of find out, a little bit about how your mind works, because you realize, and we'll talk about how you held all these different roles in a dealership. At a dealership, it's the same thing. See, Dealer Synergy is ran sort of like a dealership, right? Sometimes we could be all over the place. Now, obviously, we know what we're talking about when it comes to helping other people, but I like the way that Sean puts it. He says that, sometimes he's like a landscaper with weeds in his yard, right? So sometimes that's how it is, right? But what we got to do is we got to iron some things out. And so that's what Jonathan's been able to do. And because we operate so much like a dealership, for him coming in from an outsider's perspective, man, because y'all remember when Jenna came on board and all of the great stuff she did, and she brought us Jonathan, and man, I'm telling you, we've been on the rise ever since. So first of all, Jonathan, I want to thank you for doing that, and just kind of tell the folks a little bit. Don't give them a super long history about some of the different things, because you graduated from NADA University and all kind of cool stuff, right?
Yep. Yes, sir. Well, first of all, I want to say, again, congratulations on your anniversary. It's awesome.
Oh, absolutely.
Shout out to you and your wife. But yeah,
we made it 8 years.
More to go.
Yeah, let's go.
So yeah, now just a little bit back. I started in the internet department. Typical. There's your computer, here's our CRM, go sell cars, right? That was the training. And so it was a lot of learn, maybe not what to do, or just, learn as you go type of thing, right? But typical BDC that's how it was back in the day. Hopefully not anymore, right? But that's kind of how it was. And, I fell in love with it, I tried selling cars. Well, at one later on in life, right? I was selling cars on the floor for a minute, and I was like, put me back in the internet. It's where I belong, right? It's where my passion is. I was a floor team leader, and again, it's like, man, just the internet. I was drawn to it, and I think a lot of it is because I'm so analytical. That with the internet, you know how it is. Like, you can't fake a lead. You either got an internet lead or you didn't, right? You either made a phone call or you didn't. Now you can go in there and put LM all day long, right? But like the data still doesn't lie, right? It's like, well, you're doing the work, but there's no results. So you're either lying or you're horrible at your job, right?
He's saying that to the blind phone master, right? No, I love it. And wait, because before we get too deep into all the details, man, I just kind of wanted them to know who you are and where you came from and all that good stuff. Because I really do. I got some really cool questions that I want to go over with you. But, we got some bills we got to pay, right? So we're going to go ahead and get these taken care of. But when we come back, I'm telling y'all, Jonathan and I are going to kind of deep dive into each other's career and really shed some light on some things that I'm confident each and every one of the Millionaire Car Salesman listeners can glean from. So we'll be right back, y'all, on the Millionaire Car Salesman podcast.
If you're looking for the absolute best automotive sales training from the #1 millionaire car salesman in the world, Cody Carter, who sold 1,408 units in 2023 and made $1.2 million in personal income, make sure you sign up for Cody's 24/7 video on-demand training, tracking, and testing certification program, Sell Like Cody. That's right, Sell Like Cody is on Bradley On Demand. Cody covers absolutely everything in his successful selling process. If you want to learn how to sell more cars, more often, and more profitably, enroll now at bradleyondemand.com or contact Dealer Synergy today.
Thank you for calling Doing It Wrong Motors. How can I help you?
I was looking at the tan 2023 GMC Terrain. You guys still have that?
Oh, sorry. That vehicle's been sold.
Could this be happening at your dealership? Get the Dealer Synergy team to handle calls the right way. We'll gather all the information, drop it in the CRM, set a solid appointment with notes, so all you have to do is sell. Do yourself a favor and go to dealersynergy.com for a free demo.
And no more of this burning through phone-ups nonsense.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back on the Millionaire Car Salesman podcast. And as promised, Mr. Jonathan Schrieber and I, we're going to dive deep into our careers and just kind of talk about, how this thing even came to be, right? So before, little break, right? Before our little sponsorship opportunity, we were talking a little bit about how, Jonathan got into doing the internet and how he was passionate about the internet. But I'm pretty sure at 8, 9, 10 years old, Jonathan, you weren't saying, Mommy, Daddy, I want to sell cars, right? How did it even come to be? Can you talk about just how did you get introduced to the automotive industry?
No, good. Yeah, I definitely was not. When I went to college, kind of went on a little bit of a basketball scholarship, and I just knew that I loved basketball and I wanted to coach. And so I graduated with a business education degree, and just so I could coach basketball. And so I did that for a few years. And then I moved to Utah from St. Louis, of all places, to teach high school. And while I was out here, I met my now wife, and I moved after teaching in Salt Lake for a few years. I actually moved back to St. Louis to teach and coach, and she followed me out. And then eventually we got married. And while she was out there, she had always worked for her father at the dealership, just doing secretarial work, just stuff in the office. And she also is a teacher. And when she moved to St. Louis, she couldn't find a teaching job to save her life. Like, nobody was hiring. So she went to go do what she knew. She found a job for a big dealer group, Live Fuse, out in St. Louis, went to work for them. I was starting to get a little frustrated with teaching, just not with the kids, not with just more of the administration and, just the lack of not making money. Right. And she actually found in her office, like a job within, it's a huge group, for internet. And I'm like, well, it's I can build a website, it's no big deal. Right. And I went there and like, well, it's a sales job. Right. I'm like, well, how hard can it be? Right. Can't be that difficult. And, I'll never forget, his GM kind of asked me, he's like, well, how much do you think you want to make? I'm like, I don't know, 30, 40 grand. I'm thinking I'm giving myself a big raise because, coming from teaching, I was making nothing. They're like, it's like, son, if that's all you want, like, we don't want you. I'm like, what? Like, I'm in. Let's go. Let's go. Right.
That's good.
And so I didn't even make it out of the parking lot. And they called me, and I was starting the next day. Right. So, but I was like, how hard can it be? In the worst case, get in a family business and, make a go at it. And eventually we did move back to Salt Lake and worked for my father-in-law.
That is absolutely
Yeah.
huge, man. I like that, man, because you're absolutely right. This automotive industry, if you come in here talking about you want to make 30, 40 grand, this ain't, you need to go and flip burgers. You know what I'm saying?
I had no idea. I had no idea.
I know.
Right?
And most people don't, right? And, and that's what's crazy is that we got people in the industry who are making 50, 60 grand and we're like, hey, you got to step your game up. And then they're mad at us. I'm like, I made $50,000 last year. What'd you talk about? Right? Man, that's the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast for a reason. Like, we bought that money. All right, awesome. Man. So that's pretty cool. So you now, and you said it like you worked at that dealership for a bit. You're in a family business now, right? Because your wife, family, you said your father-in-law, he owns dealerships and all that good stuff. So at this point in time, you've held every position in the dealership, right?
Yes. I hadn't until later that I was working for my father-in-law. But at that point in time, I was doing everything I could to grow and make myself better. It's so funny. Like back then, and this is early 2000s, right? 2003.
Right.
I'm sure. I don't know if you remember like the old flip videos.
Yeah. Sean used to have those.
Yeah. I mean, that was like before its time, right? I mean, you're going out there with these little flip videos, taking walk around videos. You got to upload it, download it, and then you got to upload it to be able to send to the customers. I mean, we were doing all that stuff before that was even a thing, just really anything I could do to better my craft, right? And I was just working new internet leads. And I remember the GM, he got so tired of me, always doing dealer trades. It's like, you know what? We're going to put you in charge of the dealer trades.
There you go.
I'm like, let's go. So I was able to.
He teaching you a lesson, probably like I'm gonna make him do the work.
Right, but it was to my benefit, right? Because not only did I was able to sell more cars because I was the one making the calls, but then I also was able to help maintain our inventory, right? And not give away fresh units and move older units and bring in stuff that we could actually use and that I needed that my customers were looking for. So it's actually advantageous for me and I learned a lot from it. But then once I moved back to Salt Lake, again, I mean, I love my father-in-law for this. I mean, there's no such thing as a free lunch, right? I mean, you gotta, just because, it's part of the family, doesn't mean anything was, going to be given or special treatment. In some ways, I feel like I had to do more because I was family, to prove myself and so forth. So I kind of started from the bottom, just, kind of part of the sales team and then kind of as a floor manager for a team. And then, I constantly was looking at our internet department, our lack thereof, and kind of took over that and eventually became the director of store by store over 6 of our stores, just making sure that they were dialed in and performing, and eventually turned into bringing a service in there as well. And then after that, just like any process, I got tired of taking care of everything on, like, to me, there's always 2 sides of the sale, right? There's the front end, we got to get them in the store, and then the back half where we got to sell the car. And I always felt like that second half, sometime we hit a roadblock because the salespeople weren't doing the things that we were saying this was going to happen. Our managers might not have been doing the things that we said were going to have happen and setting those expectations. So I went to my GM at the time and it's like, hey, I want to be a general manager. And he just kind of laughed at me. And he's like, no, I'm serious. And then eventually, we decided to send me to NADA. And as I did, I had the luxury of working through every department. So it was interesting because, you go to class and you got dealers' kids or you got GMs, guys who are GMs, right? And they're like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I drive the parts truck. And they're like, no, seriously. What do you do? I'm like, I drive the parts truck, So I've changed oil. I worked the service drive. You name it. I did finance. I mean, I did just about every job in the dealership at one point in time, and some maybe longer than I needed to, but it was very good. I mean, it was very valuable.
Yeah, I got that. All right. So now I think you already kind of told us in the intro that the internet department, you were really passionate about that. I'm assuming it was like a lot of fun for you. What would you say the toughest job was in the dealership and why would you pick that one?
That's a good question. I mean, They're all challenging in a way, and they're all rewarding in a way, right?
Okay.
And why I love internet, to me, I mean, and I don't know if that's just because of where I started, but
Mm-hmm.
because again, I'm so analytical, and maybe I'm not the typical car guy, but
Mm-hmm.
I like looking at the data and backing into things and setting those daily goals. And with the sales, can you do that? Yes, but not as effective, right? Because I'll never forget, like when I was part of the team, they'd always like, how many, like, what's your goal for the month? How many cars are you going to sell this month? I'm like, I don't know.
That's the answer we typically get, right?
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, and it's true. Like, I don't know, like, because I don't know how many opportunities I'm going to get, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you know how many opportunities with the internet, like, like you can see not only you can kind of forecast how many opportunities you're going to get, but you can see in the last 90 or 120 days how many opportunities you can still have to draw from to still make a September, right?
Right.
If I'm just waiting on fresh ups, yeah, I might have some active leads that I'm working that I took from phone ups or fresh ups, but I have no idea how many opportunities I'm going to have for the month. So I can't tell you how many cars I'm going to sell, right? And I like backing in those numbers. Okay, I know what my show percentage is, or my sales percentage is. I know what my show's percentage is. So based off the numbers, I can tell you like what I can forecast,
Right.
from a sales perspective. And to me,
That
it just
is a
makes
big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Sean calls it reverse engineering, right? And that's what you basically mean, right? We talk about reverse engineering, backing into the numbers, right? And most people don't do that. And then a lot of it, you got to realize that you got to have some heart, right? Have some heart and say, okay, this is what I plan to do. And with the backing of those numbers, you go out and make it happen, because you're not going to say, well, I know I'm going to sell 10, right? Of course you are, because you got like 1,000 different opportunities. You got a, 50% closing ratio. Like, we know that's going to happen. You got to present a number that is, just outside where you think you're going to hit. That way you gives yourself some motivation. So I like that, man. I like that.
And more importantly, it's that daily motivation, right? So, because I've seen so many people just change their goal mid-month. They change their goal, and it's like, why? Like, you did that to yourself, right? And so, had you set those daily goals or those little micro goals that were that you can then adjust week by week or day by day to make sure that you still hit your goal at the end of the month.
Absolutely. I call them objectives, right? That's the whole thing. If I lay out an objective, I automatically end up hitting my goal. So phenomenal stuff, man. So you're breaking it down. We ain't only a couple minutes into the podcast, man. You know what I'm saying? Let folks know how it's done. All right. So it's so interesting because this NADA University thing is really, really interesting. There's a lot of people who are like, man, I think I might want to go, or, maybe it's a waste of time. I don't really know. What would you say is a lesson that you learned from there that you still use daily, and maybe one that you feel like it's a little overrated, right? I'm not paying that no attention, right? Because you play the game in the real world. So a lesson, let's think about one lesson that you really feel like it's helping you constantly, even as to this day, and one that was like, whatever.
Yeah, well, a couple of things stand out to me. The one that's always interesting is when you get bills, right? They get sent into the office, and the office pays them, right?
Right.
Do they know what they're just paying bills, right? They don't, and so we actually, sent some fake invoices out to some dealers just to see and sure enough, they pay them, right?
Wow.
So again, it's just accountability, right? So like knowing, like GMs and GSM, like they need to have that dialed in, and because again, if you want to make money, you got to control two things, right? The expenses and money coming in and money going out, right? I mean, those are the two things that you have to control. Well, if you're not controlling what's going out, you're costing yourself money. So that kind of lesson stood out to me, like really, kind of having your hands on everything and make sure what's going on in the store. But to me, I think what really opened my eyes was the inventory aspect and really connecting the dots with processes, and more importantly, like those internet processes, because that's where the majority of our opportunities are coming from, right? So connecting the dots with leads and inventory, and really understanding the cause and effect of that relationship, right? That was pretty eye-opening, and really like why it's so important to, not trying to control gross, because as soon as you try to control gross, guess what? You lose. gross.
All the time.
Right. So it's really, managing that inventory just like you would anything else, and having a plan in place, whether it's a purchase plan or, an exit strategy or whatever the case is, but having a hard and fast rule and really managing that, and then understanding the cause and effect with your leads. It just makes for a smoother, better process, because then there's stability across the board, right? If inventory is constantly fluctuating up and down, guess what your leads are doing? Going up and down, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
and then you're getting a bunch of leads on the same car that you can only sell one time. Again, that's problematic, right? So there's a lot of cause and effect with that. So no, it was a great experience. The first week's always the hardest, because you're just, it's straight fire hose, because you're going over the financials and for the first week, and that may be kind of a new exercise to most people, where you're not used to really digging in and looking at all that information. So it's like you walk away like, I don't know if I learned that much. It's like I almost need to take that class all over again, because it's so much information. But it's fantastic. It's
good.
Very good. I highly recommend it.
So good. And then people need to hear that kind of stuff too. Again, especially from somebody who they respect and all that good stuff. Again, they want to hear, if it's worth Jonathan's time, it's definitely worth my time. So I think that's phenomenal. So let's have a quick conversation about CRM, right? Because you're known, like Sean always talks about, Jonathan's CRM expert. He really talks about Dealer Socket. I think your family's dealership, they use Dealer Socket. Is that right?
Yeah, actually, they use Vin Solutions now, but for a long time they were Dealer Socket users. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. So let me ask you this. If every CRM in the industry suddenly disappeared, but you could only save one feature, right? What would that one feature be? Like the most, like, oh man, LA, it can't be a CRM without this. What would you say?
Ooh, that's a good question. Definitely the automation.
And talk about that, because what happens is, people don't use this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think, more importantly, to me, like I always say, there's no perfect process. And I firmly believe that. Right.
Right.
And I will also say there's no perfect CRM. Right. Like in my mind, right, I envision like, man, if I were to build a CRM, like I would take this piece from this one, this piece from this one, this piece from this one, put it all together. Right. And it'd be, next level. But that, to my opinion, that CRM just doesn't exist yet, right? Will it? Doesn't. Maybe, right? Things are always evolving. But regardless, in the car business, it's always what's the next new shiny object, right? Or the grass is greener on the other side. And a lot of times it's like, hold up, wait a minute. Like you don't even understand the CRM you have now, and you're not even using it to its entirety. So but you're willing to just jump ship because of one little feature, or somebody told you they liked this better or whatever. So to me, that was the thing for me, whether it was the CRM, whether it was back end of AutoTrader, the back end of cars.com, Google Analytics, whatever it was. Like I wanted to know that thing inside and out, and know its limitations, and make sure we were using all of its capabilities to our benefit, to get the most bang for the buck. And then if like it wasn't performing, or giving us something that we needed, let's maybe shop and see what else is out there. But really, it's there's so many dealers that they don't know that they even have back ends to some of these things, and tools and kind of items that they could be using to enhance those products to make them even more robust. So I think to me, that to me is more time beneficial to them than maybe one feature per se, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of cool. I think about the fact, like, if I was to create a CRM, like, what's the one feature that I would like to add? I think I would have like an automated thing pop up every time you hang up the phone, like, any notes?
Right? Yeah.
Any notes? Right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know. People just don't put notes in the CRM, and I get it, because you rush it through. You're doing this, you got this going on there, and then we think we're gonna remember stuff. Man, I don't remember. Just don't, right? I always say the dullest pencil is more accurate than the sharpest mind, right? And so we gotta write stuff down. You gotta put it in a CRM, because you're going to forget. If you believe in yourself that much, boy, I'm trying to. And then as soon as you do, and you start losing money because of it. And then we go, that was just, that was it. No, man. So I need that little feature to just pop up as soon as you hang up the phone.
Yeah, either
Any
pop up
notes?
or just the system locks down till you put the notes in.
Yeah.
Can't
Super
pass
cool,
go
man.
until
Right.
put
But
in the notes.
what's wild is with the age of AI and stuff like that now, if it was really, really popping, we could take it, the notes from the phone call and like just almost kind of create a simple little, I mean, it's at the point now, it's like, let's just do it for them. And then you just got to approve it. You don't even got to type nothing. Just, is this good? Is this what this conversation was about? Okay, great. Right.
No, and even like with just a lot of them have mobile app versions, and it's still like trying to make life easier because there's people on the point and not sitting at computers and they're making excuses for I'll make calls on my cell phone or whatever. I'm like, they got a mobile version. It's still I agree that that would make a huge difference.
Absolutely. All right, cool, man. So what I want to do is I want to kind of get into, because you started working with Dealer Synergy and everything like that, and I know, as I said in the introduction, that you came in here and you really made things. You added a level of organization, right? You added a level of camaraderie that was just. I think that it was different, right? And a certain level of even professionalism on the inside, right? Not necessarily outside, but inside. And I want to talk about how the mindset and what it took for you to do that. But before we do, Jonathan, we got to pay some bills. So give me just 2.5 seconds. We're going to hear from a couple of our sponsors, let them get a word or two, and then we'll be right back. Y'all, it's the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast.
This has been the most in-depth training I've had in my lot of years in the car business.
We went from 60 cars to 156 cars a month in 3 months.
NAMAD, the entire Toyota Chicago region, as well as the top automotive groups like Koons, Lithia, and Norm Reeves have all used Bradley On Demand to train their team.
They're the most comprehensive training company I've seen, and they by far have the best support system.
Doing 50 cars a month, topped out at 80. I can tell you that the Bradley On Demand training will get you to the next level.
And guess what? The world's #1 car salesman, Cody Carter, shares his exclusive strategies right here. You want his secrets? You gotta have Bradley On Demand. If you're still not enrolled in Bradley On Demand, you're missing out on the best virtual automotive training in the world. Enroll now or contact us for a free test drive of the platform today.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back on the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast. And, as promised, I want to kind of give y'all a little sneak peek into Dealer Synergy and kind of how we operate over here. Because, there's a lot of people who have, become our clients just from listening to the podcast because they get to hang out with us, right? One of the things I think is so important when you're going to partner with anyone, right? It should be somebody who you vibe with a little something, right? I'm not saying you got to agree with everything that we say, but at least be able to vibe, at least understand that, we're bringing something to your dealership, something to your organization that, just an aspect of it that you may not currently be thinking about, right? Something that's going to elevate you, right? So Jonathan, you recently joined Dealer Synergy. You've been here almost a year, right? Like 10 months, something like that, right? Okay, cool. So what would you say has been the biggest surprise stepping into a 21-year-old company with such a strong legacy? Because let's not act like Dealer Synergy don't ring bells, you know what I'm saying? What would you say has been like the biggest surprise and of just working with us?
Yeah, I think we see eye to eye on a lot of things, right? A lot of things. There might be a small twist here and there, but the difference to me, it's just been like the terminology, right? But the way we go about things, the mindset, everything that I was taught and agree with. So it just really aligned. So for me, it was really just coming in and maybe just, again, taking that analytical aspect of my mind and just having a little bit more accountability of who's doing what and why are they doing it and are they actually doing it and seeing it through and just looking at gaps and making sure like they're following the processes and things of that nature. So it's just really just maybe just kind of tightening things up a little bit just from an accountability check.
I like that. I like that. And it's crazy because with us, running an outsourced BDC now, this question is going to be even more so, right? It's going to be more relevant. But how does working with dealer synergy feel a little bit different, or just how does it compare to running a dealership like on the inside? Because I was already saying how we kind of operate like a dealership. You got Sean, who's a super duper car guy, right? You got Karen and myself, who never technically worked in dealerships, but I spent so much time inside dealerships, I feel like I don't work there. You know what I'm saying? I've had to sell cars, all kind of stuff, right? So how does it feel different, or how does it compare to like actually being in a dealership, working that day to day?
Just a little bit different stress level because
that's good. Talk about that.
I mean, think about it. I mean, it's not one GM or one GSM you got to answer to. It's several, right?
Yeah.
And so again, not only is there accountability on us, there's accountability on the dealers, accountability on the lead partners, and so everybody has a pivotal role in the success of that store, right? So again, it's that cause and effect relationship. It's one of those things. From a stress level, or I kind of look at it this way. My old GM, would always ask me like, "Hey, I need a report with this, and this." I'm like, well, that report doesn't exist, right? And most CRMs don't get that detailed, and their reporting isn't that great, right? So, but again, knowing the CRM, I could pull all that information, compile it together, and then make one report, but it takes time, right? And so it was always kind of interesting because they'd want that information, and he's like, well, hold on, I'm not paying you to build reports, or I'm paying you to run an apartment and set appointments to sell cars. And it's like, well, hold on, wait a minute, like you can't ask me for the information and then tell me like I'm doing wrong in the same breath, right? And so that's kind of how that stress to me, I guess what I would kind of say with working with outsourced and working with several dealers is, again, there's a lot of people that again want to perform at a high level, rightfully so. And we want to meet those expectations, or hopefully exceed those expectations, and not only give them those details and that information, but produce at the end of the day. And so being accountable to all those ownerships and GMs and so forth is can be stressful.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that because, again, we were talking about how my anniversary and whatnot, it's almost just like Solomon with 700 wives and 300 concubines. It's like, bro, how'd you do it?
He's trying to keep one happy. He's trying to 700.
Exactly, right. 100%. So cool, man. I think this is just a fun conversation because, again, you've been an internet director, GSM, and now you're consulting and training and all that stuff. So what would you say, even because you were working, you were at, another place before here, what would you say is like the biggest mindset shift that you had to make in order to go from being in that world to being in the vendor world?
Man, for me, it really was, for a while, like I felt complacent. And what I mean by that is when I was at the dealership, because I worked in several departments, people would come to me for help, right? Because I worked in parts, I worked in service, and the store, they still use spreadsheets that I created for them back when I was in the store.
Wow.
They use like a parts delivery sheet that I made, and they still use it to this day. And so I was talking to one of the parts guys the other day, and like, you still using that? And he was like, yeah, man, we use it every single day. And like, man, if I had to rebuild that, I would totally make it better and make it more automated. And he's like, really? It's like, how could you make it better? So anyway, people would come to me and ask for help, and I kind of felt inclined to help them because like, well, I'm part of the family. The better the better store does, the better family does. Like, I got to help them. But in reality, looking back, I should have learned to say no more, right? I should have like, no, like, tackle it, see if you can't figure that out. And then, after a while, if they just can't, I'm like, okay, let's go tackle this together.
So good.
But almost in a way, I was enabling them, right? And so leaving and then consulting, it was awesome, but I felt like, I was like, man, I can get more done in 3 hours than I could all day putting in a 10-hour shift at the dealership. Right. So in a way, I felt like I was maybe complacent. I was like, man, I should be doing more, or I'm not doing enough. And so mentally, that was probably the hardest challenge for me. is just, at a dealership, it's easy to find excuses for bad time management.
Woo, that is good right there.
Right?
See, now when I was doing the podcast, now Griffin's responsible for the production and all that kind of. When I was doing the podcast, you would get a cha-ching after he said something like that. You know what I'm saying? I drop little sound effects. I don't know if he got sound effects for you, but if he does, Griffin, that's a nice little spot, all right? Because that was fire right there, right? And that's, what Karen Bradley talks about all the time, right? The KB method of time maximization, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so, man, boy, they ain't going to want you to admit that, right? We talk about how much time gets wasted in a dealership. I mean, it's, first thing we trying to figure out is what's for breakfast and what's for lunch and all these other bunch of different. Even if you are a quote unquote productive individual, right? It's still time that's being wasted and we don't even realize it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about this, man, because we're gonna talk about going from time to talking about money. Now, I know people say that stupid line about time is money. I personally don't believe that. I believe that time is more important than money, right? We don't got to get into the details of it, but money's pretty doggone important, right? So since this is the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast, let's kind of talk these dollars. What do you think the biggest mistake that salespeople or managers make once they start making some real income, right? Because they might have came here for $40,000 and they start making $400,000. What's the silliness that they do that they ought not do?
Yeah, no, it's I'm guilty of that one myself. I think my first year I made close to 100, and then I do taxes. I'm like, where'd that money go? I'm like, I had to pay more in taxes, but then you make more, you spend more, and I'll never forget. My GM at the time, he was interesting, but I really learned to love him over time and have a lot of respect for him. And we've had some great conversations, but his whole thing was like, you got to be like the squirrels, right? And I was like, what's this man talking about, squirrels? And he's like, and then he's like, hey, you got to store nuts. You got to learn to store nuts, right? And so, because you never know in sales, like when you might have a bad month, because it can happen, right? But if you're, teaching yourself to save, so those months are really, really strong, you need to learn to save that money and set it aside, because you might have a month that's not so strong, right?
Yeah.
But that to me, looking back, there's probably 2-3 years that I spent way more than I should have, just because I was making it and worked too hard just to kind of throw that money away, so to speak.
Absolutely, man. One of the things that I think about is I always put myself on a clock of, if I never made another dollar, like how long could I go without ever making another dollar, right? Because I've been around people that, okay, they might be able to last 2 weeks. Some people can last a month. Some people can last a year. Some people can last 10 years, right? Some people, you don't even got to worry about it, right? Yeah. And so if I'm spending up all my money, I feel like I'm spending up my future, right? I'm actually throwing my future away. Yeah. So what I got to do is I got to say, okay, LA, here's what you deserve. You're at a level where I'm going to almost LA, you're going to pay yourself a salary of $5,000 a month. So even if I make 10, I'm only allowed to use 5 of it, right? Because the other 5 got to go to get set aside, right? And if I make 15, I'm still only going to use 5 of it, right? And it seems like it's really weird, but again, that month that you make 2, 3, right? Yeah. Then you're able to still pay yourself 5 because you got so much stored up, right? And then once, and then you can continue to plan that out as you go. And especially when your money start making money for you, right? When I'm telling you, it's one of the greatest feelings, right? When you got money that just sends you money, right? And that's the secret. That's what the secret is. But we don't know that, right? Nobody tells us that money is meant to be a seed, right? That goes into, you put it into something that it gives you some offspring, right? It just it's fruitful, right? It's the whole thing about that's the way it's supposed to be.
For sure.
So all right. So I mean,
to that point, I'm not budgets to me is kind of a bad word, just because most budgets.
Oh, I don't like it either.
To your point, they don't pay yourself first. Like I want to see you pay yourself first, and then pay your bills. But if you're not paying yourself first, you ain't working for you. You're working for somebody. And then the other thing that I would say that's super important, we all know that individual or individuals that worked at every dealership in the city. right? They just go from dealership to dealership. And I've never understood that. I mean, if you're going to get in this business, you got to put a plan in place and commit, like give yourself a hard, like 3-year commitment. And then after that 3 years, that job becomes so much easier, assuming you did the little things right, because you're going to get that referral, you're going to get that repeat business, and then it just becomes so much more, lucrative, and not just financially, but just it's just more rewarding. Period. I mean, you're helping customers. I mean, you have that base. It's just so much easier.
I love that. I love that, man. All right. So we're talking about making money, right? So let's talk about, as a salesperson or even as a manager, right? In your opinion, which skill is more, let's just say, valuable today? Would you say is raw intelligence or your ability to read people? What would you say is a more valuable skill?
Ooh, I mean, man, kind of 50-50, right? I think knowing how to read people is probably, in today's market, probably a little more valuable, because you could be, you could have all the skills and be the smartest guy in the room, but if the other person, they, doesn't like what you're putting down, doesn't really matter, right? So, I mean, you got to be able to read the room. Yeah, I think that's important. Having those conversations with people
skills and all
connecting,
that good stuff.
Yeah, just connecting, and just the humanization of selling is really, really important.
Absolutely. All right, cool. So with that being said, if you had to train a salesperson who had tons of people skill, but just not very technical, right? But how would you shape them into a top producer? Like they got the people skills, but their their stuff is just way off, right? Well, how would you whip them into shape?
I don't know that I necessarily would try to whip them into shape. That's where, me personally, I would look at kind of forming some kind of agreement with that individual. If they could get X amount of sales per month, like I would actually provide them with an assistant, and that assistant would, right? I mean, think about it. If you could produce 18, 20 sales a month, like I would pay for you to have an assistant, and that assistant would send your emails and your texts and do some of that behind the scenes work, scheduling deliveries and things of that nature. If you could, if you were the person that was going to like 35, 40 cars a month, I'll get you 2 assistants, right? So, there's some people, like, you can't change the stripes on the cat, right? And so, like, you can want them to, you can will them to, but if they don't want to, it's not going to happen. So, like, why beat your head against the wall? I mean, I remember we were having a management meeting one day, and we were talking about, employees, and there's some conversation of like, oh, so-and-so does 18 cars a month, and like, he really could be a, 20 plus 30 car guy a month. And there was like, but he doesn't want to. He's content. Like, money's not his motivation. So, like, we could be mad about it and we can yell and scream at him, but guess what? He's still going to be a 12, 15 car guy a month, right? Like, the numbers aren't going to change. So are we okay with that? Or should we just get rid of him? Right. But we know what we're going to get from them. So again, I look at it from that perspective. I mean, some people you just can't change, and money's not always the motivator, but the ones that are, it's fantastic. But to me, like, I think there's solutions that can be brought to the table to enhance it and make that situation even better.
Yeah, no, I totally get that, man. I really like what you said as far as like because everyone is not going to see, each and every one of us. I'll talk about this all the time, even in my book, right? I talk about how, like, everyone on earth has something else that everybody else needs, right? I need people in my life because I can't see, right? I need some sighted people around me. I mean, it is what it is, right? And so if I'm great at reading people, I need some technical folk around me, right, to allow me to maximize myself. And so I think that you're absolutely right. As in the dealership world, we got to know that people are great at some things, and there's some things that they aren't great at. So don't force them to be great at the thing that they're not great at. If it makes sense to just hire somebody, bring on somebody else on board who is great at that thing, and then that person is not so great at people skills, right? Create teams of people that do things. I mean, if you think about it, that's the whole reason that the BDC even was developed, right? Exactly. We need somebody to make the phone call. We won't have time to do all that, or the skill, or I'm good in front of people. I don't know how to do the phone thing. you know what? Okay, let me just get you some people let me get you some appointment settings, right?
Yeah. I mean, some
So I love
people are self-motivated enough to recognize their strengths and weaknesses and turn their weaknesses into strengths. But most people, they're content, and
Yeah.
they're not going to. So I think everybody's different in that regard.
Yeah, I love that, man. All right, so I got kind of like a 2-point question here, right? So outside of like, what do you do from? Would you say you're like a video game guy? What kind of stuff do you do outside of like working and all that kind of stuff? What do you do for fun?
Well, I don't know if you call it.
It's a 2-part question.
Yeah. So I'm definitely not a video. I've never been a video guy. Like
Okay.
It's hard for me to sit still. I'm a doer, right? So
Gotcha. Okay.
I've always been a perfectionist. So I enjoy woodworking, just working on the house. I'm a great cook, although I don't enjoy cooking.
Oh yeah, you told us about that that French onion soup. Hold on now, don't forget we ain't forget about that, John.
Yeah, I gave you the recipe. She didn't made it for you yet.
No, we don't have that conversation tonight. We done hit 8 years now. It's time for you to.
There you go. So I played college sports. So I'm very competitive, and so I still enjoy being competitive. But,
I love that.
My age, it's hard to play basketball competitively, so that's a foregone pass. But now I spend a lot of time on a bicycle, so I do 100, 200 mile bike races, gravel, road. So if I usually I ride a lot throughout the week, and so that's
nice.
That's my hobby of choice now.
So that was a setup question for me to ask you this, right? So if you could compare running a dealership, right, to like playing a basketball game, right? Can you show folks, because there's some folks who listen to the podcast who love basketball, man. There's some folks who love, riding their bike and stuff like that, man. But can you create a little bit of a comparison chart? Like, hey, this is just like this. How can you help someone who really loves basketball or really loves riding a bike to what it takes to run a dealership so they can understand it on their level?
Yeah, I mean, I think basketball is probably easy. Well, even in cycling, I mean, oddly enough, it is kind of a team sport. But basketball is probably easier analogy. But if you look at the dealership as a whole, right, you got fixed, you got variable, and so forth, and everybody's a little bit different, right? I mean, basketball, you got different positions, size, abilities, jumping, speed, whatever, and in order to be effective, you need all the right pieces to go the distance. And same thing with the dealership. I mean, it'd be tough to take somebody in sales and stick them in parts, right? I mean, parts just have a different mentality, right? I mean, yes, they're selling, but the tough part is to get them to sometimes like have that selling mentality opposed to just that order taking mentality, right? So, I mean, you can't just, move the pieces around and expect things to work in the dealership. You have to have the right mentality and the right mindset and the right accountability within each department to, keep them humming along. One of the things that, when I was at our family's dealership, we, in our management meetings, we would have like a book of the month type club type deal. And so every month we kind of read a book, and then we would talk through some of the chapters and so forth. And it's not really a book you read cover to cover, but it's called Gamification by Chris Collins. And it really had a huge impact on the culture of our store. And again, kind of talking about the different, whether it's positions or, just with a basketball team or in the dealership, it really kind of tore down some of those walls and brought the dealership together to compete competitively. Like, so we'd have competitions between parts and service, or sales and parts and service, or whatever, where we were all kind of focused on the same thing. And it really kind of brought everybody together and had fun with it. And, talking about money, the dealership is one of the few jobs to me where it's like, you got to spiff somebody to do their job, where if they did their job, they'd make more money, right? Like, I don't get it. Like, yeah, you get more ups today, whatever. Like, we'll give you a spiff. If you get cash in hand on a write up. We'll give you a spiff. I'm like, well, you should be doing that anyways. And if you were, you'd make more money.
You ain't worry about the spiffs.
Yeah. And so, once we introduced some of the games, like we found like we don't have to spiff these guys as much, because like just this contest alone is a driver. Like it's fun. It's bragging rights. People get into it. So
that's pretty cool.
There's a lot of correlations though between sports and just running a dealership and everybody doing their part, and it's like any sport, right? Even in 5-man, you got one guy that tries to go off and do his own thing and something he's not good at. Guess what? You're gonna fail, right? So everybody's got to work together to accomplish the same mission, and so I guess having said that, it's like does the dealership in fact have a mission? Right? Is every department kind of just doing their own thing, looking up for themselves, or are they working together with with one goal in mind, moving forward? So
I love that. All right, so I'm gonna ask you a question that might get you in a little bit of trouble, right? So I'm gonna ask you this: who's more difficult to manage? Right? Who's more difficult to manage? Customers, salespeople, or family at Thanksgiving dinner? Like, what would you say? Like, to manage, like, well, you got, because I know you the cook, right? I know you be cooking it up, right? So is it the family over Thanksgiving dinner? Is it the customers? Is it the salespeople? Who's more difficult to manage?
Yeah, it's definitely not the family. Because I mean, there's a united front there, and we'll talk business, right? But it's never bad.
Because you hear the stories, right? Usually you go online and you go to the Reddit, they be like, "Oh, my dealership, this and this." Y'all only gross this amount.
Yeah, I would say it's probably hard to manage salespeople because you can't control customers, right?
Right.
You just can't. I mean, you can shape them and try to lead them, but at the end of the day, it's their decision to make, right? And so I would say it's hard to manage salespeople. And again, I'm guilty of this myself, but you know how it is. Like you start and you're learning as much as you can, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh man, I got this down. Like I'm good. Like, I know everything there is to know. And then when you get to that point, right, you start going backwards. Trouble. Yeah, you start going backwards, and you try to like talk to that person and help them. And like, you're taking some shortcuts here. You're not doing the things that you were doing. Right. And, that's when the egos come out, and you get a lot of type A personality. So that can be a little bit challenging. But again, I think part of that's just changing that culture and having the right people in place to, help that. So, again, much respect to my first GM ever. His whole thing was like, you need to do a checkup from the neck up, and so I kind of taught myself to do that after every deal, because I worked my deals A to Z. Like I would work the leads, I'd set the appointment, I'd confirm the appointment, I'd sell the appointment, and do the delivery, the whole 9 yards, right? And after I got done with every customer, I kind of taught myself, I'm okay, like how was my meet and greet? How was my fact finding? How was my product presentation? And some of that stuff was already done because I did it through the internet process, right? But how was my demo drive? How was my write up? How was just overall experience? And like, man, I was talking about performance, and clearly I should have been talking about safety. Like, I need to tighten up what I'm doing so that I can, make that deal or improve my process or my mental, capability for the next customer that I had, right? And then I would conclude that with just taking the time to write them a handwritten note. And I would probably, even though that's probably not a go-to in today's day and age, like if I were still selling it, I would still do that today. I mean, think about how many times do you get personalized mail? Never, never,
very
right?
rarely.
So just to be different, again, whether it have any impact or not, but you know what, some customers might actually appreciate that, and again, it's just an extra step, extra measure, just to really thank them for the opportunity and the time, and again, make that connection, show you care.
Absolutely. This is like a perfect time. If Send Out Cards was a sponsorship, you know what I'm saying? We could be like, hey, go to Send Out Cards. Right? They always cut those, those personalized things. So all right. So I'm going to get ready to close out, man. I don't want to be keeping you too long, but so how old were you when you were an internet director, real quick?
How old was I?
Yeah, roundabout.
Let's see. So I was...
I don't mean to make you do a whole bunch of mental math, but
I was
just...
late 20s, early 30s, maybe.
Okay. All right. So if you could give one piece of advice to the 29-year-old version, like the internet director version of yourself, what would it be?
For me, it would have been just be more patient. You know, I think in my mind, I wanted things to happen faster than they were. So just overall being more patient and understanding of the situation and just, you know, maybe at the time, you know, holding my team more accountable. Because I think, you know, I really didn't create a lot of the accountability pieces until, you know, kind of towards the end of, you know, me being an internet director, which would have been a lot more helpful but again, it was being in that experience and knowing, okay, what to look at, right? Because there's so many dealerships that just look at, you know, a small sampling of KPIs to kind of drive success, you know, success or failure. And to me, some of those aren't even the right metrics. So it was after that experience, I'm like, hey, we need to look at this and this and this and this and this. And then over time, just building and adding more to it and just doing deeper and deeper dives. And again, I think that's where it kind of comes back to that, you know, just patience, you know, piece of it.
That's really good. That's really good. I like that, man. So man, when the dust settles, right? How do you want people to remember your contribution to the industry? What would you say like this? Because we're in a Millionaire Cars the podcast, right? We got there's like literally 2 million folks that download this podcast and listen to it. So how would you want everybody to remember the contribution? Here's what Jonathan stood for. This is what Dan, like, you know, because and this kind of good. So we had you know, we did a podcast for Jim Ziegler and all that kind of good stuff. And I'm not talking like trying to put you in the grave or nothing. I'm just saying, right? What's that one thing that, because if you decide on this now, Karen talks about this, if you make a decision now as to what your 80th birthday is going to be like, that's what makes it more likely to happen. So what's that thing that you want to make sure that the industry knows that Jonathan contributed this?
Yeah, I would say a couple of things: slowing down to speed up, working with a purpose, not just one department, but, you know, as a whole, like working with a purpose and you know, end of sight in mind. Again, I'm very analytical and I've gotten to, you know, work with some really, really good general managers who challenged me and pushed me and made me, you know, use that analytical side of my mind to actually further the conversation. And, you know, because, you know, before, like early as a consultant, I would suggest things. I'm like, well, is that a feeling or is that real? And I'm like, you know, and I'm like, we don't have that data. We probably need to table this conversation. I'm like,
so good.
Yeah,
so good,
I mean, I have my intuition and I feel strongly about it, but like it's hard. Like, yeah, I mean, I never really thought about that. Makes sense. So, you know, I would then put that data together and we could further that conversation. So to me, again, like that's part of working with that purpose. Like, I don't want to make a business decision without knowing why I'm making it. And it's for the betterment of the situation. Right.
Yeah,
so that's really helped me. And I think that's really important to me.
And you know what? I think that's definitely something that you bring to Dealer Synergy, because Sean and I are definitely feeling people, right? I'm an artist, right? He comes from where he comes from, right? And we just kind of get inklings. We, you know, Sean from the streets, right? From the hood. Like, I'm like, you know, I'm like, wait, I feel as though, all people in the hood, we know what I'm talking about, right? So we feel like certain things are happening, but when you come in with the data, it's like, oh, well.
Well, and you know how many times conversations we have with dealers and where you're talking to a GM or somebody and you're kind of, you know, dogging maybe one of their top sales guys. I'm like, well, yeah, he might be your top sales guy and you might keep giving him leads, but guess what? They're not coming from the leads. So you're wasting all these, you're making an assumption, you know, that he's getting sales from everywhere and he's not, right? So yeah, I mean, data is very powerful. And, you know, and you again, kind of go back to that shiny object with dealers. that, you wave something in front of them and it's like, oh yeah, let's do that. Oh, let's do that. And it's every other week or every 2 weeks they're changing stuff. It's like, how do you know what works or what doesn't if you're constantly moving the goalposts,
Absolutely don't. Yeah, man. So this has been absolutely phenomenal, man. You've been bringing that heat all daggum hour long. I don't even feel like it's been as long
I know,
podcast as it's been. We just been enjoying ourselves, having a great conversation. But man, I'm telling you, I always say that you are the average of the 5 people who you spend the most time with, right? And you have just been spending time with L.A. Williams, the blind master, and Mr. Jonathan Schrieber, man. He's, listen, Mr. Analytical Mind, still have a lot of fun, still a lot of, gonna make sure you perform at your best, right? And so now it's your turn. Go out there, make sure your team is performing at their best. Make sure your team has mastered the things that they're supposed to master, right? Bring in some assistance to help them, even be even more effective, right? And if you do that, then you get the opportunity to be a millionaire car salesman. We'll talk to y'all next week. Peace.
Thank you so much for watching this week's episode. If you liked it, you're gonna love Bradley On Demand. Bradley On Demand is the most advanced virtual training, tracking, testing, and certification platform. What does that mean? It's an online university. And if you like this information here, we have hundreds and hundreds of advanced videos, step by step, on how to help you sell more cars more often and more profitably, so sign up now.